You hear the term the state thrown around constantly, right? But what does it actually mean? It's way more than just a country or, a shape on a map. Today, we're going to break down the four essential ingredients, the things political scientists agree a state absolutely must have to be called a state. So let's dive in. So let me ask you, when you hear the word state, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a country, right? Like France or Japan. Maybe you think of the government. And you're not wrong, but as we're about to find out, the real definition is way more specific, and honestly, a lot more powerful than you might think. See, in political science, state isn't just a synonym for country. Not at all. It's a very particular kind of organized community. It's totally different from, say, an ancient empire or a nomadic tribe. And get this, it's a pretty new idea, historically speaking. The modern state as we know it only really started taking shape around the 15th century. Okay, so to really get a grip on this, here's our game plan. We'll start with the definition itself. Then we'll dig into the four essential building blocks every single state has to have. That's population, territory, government, and the real game changer, sovereignty. All right, section 1, the definition. Let's try to pin down this powerful idea. And it's funny because trying to define the state has challenged even the greatest political thinkers throughout history. It's a really big concept, and people have looked at it from a few different angles. So here's one classic take. This is from Woodrow Wilson. He said a state is a people organized for law within a definite territory. Pretty clean, right? Simple, you've got people, you've got laws, and you've got a specific place. It's a really solid place to start. But now, let's jump way, way back in time, to the philosopher Aristotle. He saw things a little differently. For him, it wasn't just about rules and borders. No, it was all about the purpose of the state. The whole reason it existed was to help people live a happy and prosperous life. It was about community, about well-being. Okay, so let's pull all that together into the definition we're going to use for the rest of this explainer. It's basically a synthesis from the work of political scientist James Garner. A state is a community of persons in a definite territory with an organized government, and, this is the kicker, it's independent of external control. This definition hits all the key points. This is our foundation. And those key points lead us right to this, the four essential elements of a state. Think of these as the non-negotiable ingredients. You absolutely, positively need all four of them. If you pull even one of these out of the mix, the whole concept of a state just collapses. So let's break them down one by one, starting with number 1. All right, section 2, population, the people who make the state. I mean, this one seems kind of obvious, right? You can't have a state without people. But it's not just about having a bunch of folks hanging around. It's about how that community is actually structured and who gets what rights. So within any given state, you've got different groups of people. First, you have your citizens. They get the whole shebang, full civil, economic, and political rights like voting. Then you might have subjects who have civil and economic rights, but not political ones. And finally, you have aliens or non-citizens who have basic civil rights and protections, but with more limitations. So how many people does it take to make a state? Well, the answer to that has changed a lot. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato had a very, very specific idea. He thought the perfect state should have exactly 5,040 citizens, not 5,039, not 5,041. Now, flash forward to today, and you've got a state like China with over 1.4 times billion people. So yeah, the modern take is pretty clear. Size really doesn't matter. A state can be huge, or it can be tiny. Okay, on to our next ingredient, territory, a place to call home. This one is super straightforward, but absolutely critical. A state has to have a physical, defined piece of land. It needs a home base. And the rule is simple. No territory, no state. Period. This is precisely why nomadic tribes, groups that are always on the move, aren't considered states. Even if they have leaders and rules and a whole social structure, without that fixed piece of land, it's a no-go. But it's not just that you have territory, it's where that territory is. That is hugely important. Think about it. Does it have access to the sea for trade? Are there valuable natural resources under the ground? Are its borders in a really strategic or maybe even a really volatile part of the world? A state's geography, look at places like Pakistan or Afghanistan, can literally define its power and its role in international politics. All right, we're on to element number 3, government, the machinery of rule. So you've got your people, you've got your land, now you need a way to organize it all. That's what the government is. It's the machinery of the state, the system that actually wields power and makes the big decisions for everyone. And here's the thing. Every government, I don't care if it's a democracy or a full-blown dictatorship, does 3 basic things. It has a part that makes the laws, that's legislation. It has a part that carries out the laws, that's execution. And it has a part that interprets the laws, adjudication. Those 3 functions are basically the engine that makes the whole state run. Okay, so we've got people, we've got territory, and we've got a government. But wait a minute. Lots of organizations have those things, right? So what makes a state so special? Well, that brings us to our final and, you could argue, most important element. This is the secret sauce. The thing that makes the modern state what it is, sovereignty. So what on earth is sovereignty? Simply put, it's the absolute and unrestricted power of a state to rule over its own territory. It means the state is the top dog, the final authority. No one else gets to tell it what to do inside its borders. Not a church, not a giant corporation, not another country. The state, and only the state, calls the shots. And this is what makes the modern state so different from what came before. Just look at this comparison. Back in medieval times, a king's power was all fragmented. He had to share it with the church, with powerful nobles, with guilds. The pope could often overrule him. But then you have the modern state. It completely flipped the script. It took all that scattered power and centralized it under one supreme authority. And the reach of this state authority is just massive. First, it's universal. It applies to every single person within the borders, no exceptions. Second, it's compulsory. You don't get to opt in or opt out. You're subject to the law just by being there. And finally, it's coercive. This means the state has the power to force you to comply and to punish you if you don't. Which leads us to one last really critical question. If sovereignty is the glue holding the whole thing together, what happens when that glue dissolves? What happens when a state loses its absolute power and can't enforce its own laws anymore? Well, when that happens, the state as we know it, it just ceases to exist. You're left with what's called a stateless society. And this isn't just some theory from a textbook. We've seen it happen. Think about Lebanon during the Civil War in the 1980s, or what happened when Yugoslavia broke apart in the 1990s. It's a pretty powerful reminder that the state, with all its power and authority, is still a human invention. And like any invention, it can, and sometimes does, completely fall apart.